is not the absence of fear. Courage is just doing what it takes despite one's fears. My twin sons knew all about my Ski for Light adventures. They had advised me with strength training exercises and different techniques for building endurance. After they graduated from college, they moved to the state of Alaska. One of the first things they did, they sent me a gift. That gift just happened to be a chocolate mountain. It was a replica of Mount McKinley, which is Alaska's highest mountain. It's the highest mountain in all of North America. It is one of the 3 highest mountains in the world. Now, I think everybody has a memory that lasts with them their whole life about some time and place. Well, that's how it was for me. As my fingers were feeling the shape of my chocolate mountain, my husband was reading to me about the package that it came in. He said there are trails on Mount McKinley. I was so intrigued by that, I called the library where books are recorded for blind people to listen to. And I found books there written by people who had climbed the trails on Mount McKinley. Now, my sons called me frequently from Alaska to describe their adventures to me. Well, every time I talked with them about the trails on my chocolate mountain. 4 years went by, and during that time, each one in our family had been to Alaska adventuring with Mike and Marty. And then one day, they said, "Mom, it's your turn to come to Alaska. Let's start talking about climbing Mount McKinley." We realized we would be taking a very great risk. This was to be a private family adventure, just my twin sons and myself. We were not looking for fame. We were not trying to break a record. We weren't aware of the fact that no other blind person had ever summited the mountain before I did. When we received our acceptance to climb the mountain, we had 1 year to train ourselves, to gather our equipment and prepare what did turn out to be almost 3 weeks of winter camping with extreme cold temperatures. Whenever I have a goal, I pay close attention to my daily Bible reading. At that time, I had just opened the book of Joshua, and right there in the very first chapter were these words, "Be strong, be of good courage, and be not afraid, for the Lord thy God shall be with thee, whithersoever thou goest." Well, those words helped me to be persistent with my training for that whole year. And they gave me the courage that I needed while I was on the mountain. I studied books about mountain climbing. I made Braille notes about important things to memorize, like altitude sicknesses and the symptoms of them. I made Braille notes about the different ways that you breathe on the mountain. Sure, there are times when you breathe deep, but up high on the mountain, when your body is so weary and it is so hard, you take one step and try to breathe 4 breaths. One more step and 4 breaths. My husband had taken me out to steep hillsides all during that year of my training, and I practiced climbing up and down steep areas with my ice axe until it became a comfortable extension of my hand. And that ice axe, it works well in my flower gardens every summer. During that year of my training, during the winter months, we had a few nights when it was below 0. And that's when I began to wonder, will I be able to sleep in really cold air? Well, I figured out I had a chance to try it. So I put my sleeping bag on my back porch. And not realizing it, but I tried putting on the warmest clothes I knew I would have on the mountain, trying to get in my bag. Well, the only thing I learned was that is not the way you go about it. Climbing the mountain, I knew I would have to carry 50 pounds on my back, in my backpack. So when my son sent me my backpack, I took a 5-pound bag of flour from the kitchen and I put it in my backpack, and I carried that around every day for a week until it was comfortable. From then, I started adding other things from the kitchen that I knew just how much they weighed until I was carrying 50 pounds on my back. Everyone who climbs mountains wears a harness. Safety ropes from one person to another are attached to your harness. I was roped to my sons with 50 feet of rope between each one of us. My son Mike was usually in the lead, and my son Marty was 50 feet behind me, guiding me with verbal descriptions. When the snow was deep, we trudged along on snowshoes, but higher up on the mountain, we switched over to the sharp-pointed crampons and strapped those to the bottom of our boots. We had a huge, immense wall of ice we had to climb. And then I remember feeling fear when my son said, "Mom, you have to jump across this crevasse. And when you land on the other side, you will be landing on ice and rock." I knew I was feeling fear because Mike was always ready with a camera. And when Mike said, "Mom, I need a smile," I knew I did not want to smile, but I did not want fear to interfere with my climb or hinder me in any way. My sons were very strict with me on the mountain. They insisted that I use proper climbing technique at all times. It had taken us 16 days climbing up to reach the very top, the summit of Mount McKinley. Going down the mountain, it would take 2 whole days and half of a night. When we got back down to base camp and were ready to leave the mountain, we were ready to leave all the views of all that white snow and ice. And I was so happy when I heard excitement in my sons' voices as we left the mountain and were flown to the village. "It's green, Mom! It's green! Everything is green!" This was the first week of June, and all the new June spring growth was out there. It's so beautiful. We were so excited. But boy, did it feel good to take off all our mountain climbing clothes and put on comfortable cotton sweatpants and shirts. And we were anxious to get into a little restaurant to get some food we hadn't had for such a long time. But when we walked indoors, we did not like it. We felt so closed in. We had to take our food outside so we could enjoy it. And it felt good to sit down on a bench and eat off a table for the first time in so long. But you know, I've been doubly blessed and forever changed from the choices that I made that made it possible for me to have these experiences.